My name is Jakes, and welcome to the second episode in my world tour series where I showcase the best builds in your world. Anyone can submit a copy of their world, and the most creative and aesthetically pleasing worlds will be selected for my monthly world tour videos.
Hold on, let me take my time.
In the previous episode, we featured Sarah's World from Satisfactory, and today we've got a member from my Discord community by the name of MoroseTurnip. Unfortunately, he was not able to join me today for an interview in person, but he was able to send me a few details of himself and his world. Hi, I'm from Poland and I'm 23 years old, and like most of us, I spend my free time in front of the computer after work. So my adventure with Satisfactory began less than a year ago, with the release of version 1.1. All 600 hours I spend with the game is on this save. Satisfactory is my first factory type game, so many of the mechanics were completely new to me. Around 400 hours I realized the game has enormous design potential. That's when I decided to redesign the factories and started by removing the old ones. For this reason my production is currently quite poor. I focused entirely on visuals, which is very time consuming. I've built a few buildings inspired by reference images. For example this one, from which I made a complex of storage units. You might think there is no point in having so much storage, but once all the factories are ready, I'm not sure if there will be enough storage. Also, some small parts like air conditioners are not my creation. Everything else is what consumes 600 hours of my life. The world is built in survival mode with a few mods like expanded dimensional warehouse, which allows me to build the first of 2 new factories with attention to every detail after removing the so-called spaghetti belt, and if Jakes hadn't asked me, I would not even have known about a creative mode. As for the mods, 90% of the installed mods are all technical mods like Infinite Nudge and Curve Builder to speed up construction. There are currently 18 mods, but the most important one is Structural Solutions, without which many of the projects simply would not exist. I have an idea for a megacity on the water with a beautiful skyscraper and a production center in the middle, but that's a distant prospect. At the moment, all these builds are focused around the grassy fields as well as the dune desert, with some construction popping up in the lakes and forest areas. The dune desert and the grassy fields are connected via one massive highway with a hybrid tube as well as a built-in belt section right below the road. Most of the interior and exterior to some extent is quite shiny. For this I'm using a console command which can be found in the description of this video, along with the full mod list if you want to check that out. Alright, let's have a closer look at his world. Right, as you guys can see, the floor is quite shiny. And the only way to achieve this is going to be on PC and via console command. So sorry consoles, console players, you guys won't be able to do this. But hopefully they'll introduce mods soon and you guys will be able to download a mod that will be able to do all this. This entire building is the central storage, but I found this kind of like a staircase to be really interesting and kind of it's very cool. It's a very cool design. I'm definitely going to be doing something like that in my world as well. And I do like the scale of this kind of like display going up and down here, along with these really cool chandeliers that you can see everywhere in these little light fixtures. But this vertical section here is basically just a bunch of signs for the background and then metal pillars going across. I think that's the small billboard. Yeah, it could be the small billboard. But yeah, just beams on either side and then a diagonal beam going at a certain angle and just repeat it all the way up. Really cool. Entering to this kind of like open area, you can see they've got the space elevator here plus a couple of modded assets which are wind turbines. So everything looks really cool. It's got a really clean and kind of like sci-fi look to it with all the lights and stuff, which unfortunately are emissive beams and not signs, but I think you can get the same effect with signs as well. Anyways. So this section is kind of nice. I really like the way this looks, and I think this is all vanilla. You can get the painted beams and just paint them chrome or something. And then you've got your wall sections, uprights and the sloped ones. And just add the lights in there, paint it nice, and you can get this kind of look. It's very nice. I like it. It's very cool. All right, going over to this section here. I do like the fact that he's using a lot of triangles here. So you can see here, it's just basically beams at an angle and then painted white, and then you've got different color or different beams at a different angle, opposing angle, I suppose. Painted black, you've got some light slapped in there, and you've got this door in there. So, I don't know, it works. It works. It's really nice. So it seems like all of this is still work in progress. So we'll move on from here. All right. So as you can see, this is just a ton of storage in preparation for factories that is still to be built. But he removed basically all of his old buildings and get rid of all the spaghetti to replace it with these really cool designs and a lot of triangle uses here. Good use of light. You can see with the red and the white. I think we've got a production area right here. This is obviously AI limiters. Yeah. Okay. No, it looks like it's still busy with this one. So we'll push on. So let's head back to the car and we'll move over to the grassy fields. It's actually a good time to have a look at this roadway. It's really elaborate, but in a good way. And it's basically just ramps as far as I can. Yeah, it's ramps and a bunch of obviously with the high glossy pillars now. I think these are actually modded ones. This glossy one. Let's have a look. Yeah, but it's got emissive beams and then it's got these very shiny pillars in here. But these are all vanilla stuff, so that's just ramps, just done really creatively. And I do like the scale of it. It looks quite epic actually. So the road is, his roads does look nice, I have to say. And I hope that he adds a lot more traffic to it. It will just make it look really awesome. But yeah, let's move on. All right, coming back to the grassy fields here. So we can see these buildings look really epic. Now, these are mostly storage still at the moment, with a little bit of production splattered here and there. Right, so he's got these 4 massive storage areas here, so you won't be able to 100% duplicate these buildings because of these little rounded edges here. So these are all modded items. So you can do something similar to this in vanilla, but you're not going to get this nice clean look, especially with like the width that it is, because if you want to go make some sort of circular thing with whatever assets we have in vanilla, it's going to be tricky. Anyway, so having a look down here, so we've got train stations at the bottom for all of these. I do like the orange little bit here just to accent all the entrances and kind of like just like emphasizing the lines. It's kind of like a downlight, so I think it looks really, really nice. But unfortunately, these are all still emissive beams, which is a mod, but you can do this with signage to a large extent. These are all based on the reference images that I showed you earlier, and using that reference image to be your guide really helps you just to kind of work to a singular goal. But obviously do change it as you see fit. Reference images are there just for inspiration. It's not like, I would say, don't use your reference images as like a hard solid guide. Just use that to be able to work to in a certain direction and adjust it as you need it. I really like the roof section here because I still struggle with roofs to make them look interesting. And I do love these beams. These beams are amazing. The fact that they're a bit more sleek, a bit more smaller, they just look much better in design. And the ones that we can do, which is very similar to this, are these. What you see? Where is it again? Architecture. Here we go. These beams here, these kind of like small frames, but they're quite chunky, and it just doesn't look the same. Like they're about double the size. So you do get something similar to this look that he has with the frames, but in vanilla that is. But yeah, not 100%. Anyway, so these 4 buildings are roughly duplicates of each other. They've obviously been configured for whatever their purposes will be in the future. But let's head down to this little walkway down here, which I think actually looks really cool. There's another walkway right below us. This is obviously the top one. And if you go down to this section, you can see there's another walkway. And I do like the fact that it's actually on 2 levels. So it just gives it a bit more dimension in between these buildings and just ties it nicely together instead of just being 4 separate buildings. I do kind of like the way that he did these lights, which are just a standard sign with a beam cutting to the edge, but it just gives the light a little bit of a different look and feel, and I like it. It looks good. And then with the shininess, it makes it looks really interesting, and it kind of looks like a different game to some extent if you look at the shininess with the HUD disabled. Right, let's move on. So these sections you can see, this is all primarily storage. I'm gonna try and get in here somewhere. I'm just gonna go through here. There we go. All right, you guys can see, so this is all just dimensional storages mixed with industrial storages, and everything's been rigged up, ready for whatever his plans are. So he apparently said this is not going to be enough storage. I think these are tons of storage, but then again, I don't know what he has in mind. Maybe he wants to go completely insane when it comes to the amount of construction in here. So I think that will be interesting to see what the final product looks like. The one thing I think that is missing here is a bit more access. You've got the elevator on the other side, but you don't really have a door or doorways to come in and out. So maybe something to think about, but that's just me. I do like to have like a walkable access everywhere, like that doors, for just more of those, for instance. All right, we're gonna have a look at that other one over there in a minute, but I want to show you guys something else that I saw. I do like these bollards, but unfortunately that's another mod, but they are really nice. I think we can definitely do something like that in vanilla. Alright, moving over to this train station right here. This is the one I was looking for, and I showed it earlier. And it just looks really cool with all the little beams coming out, and then this pillar section here is basically just a big metal pillar at an angle placed on top of each other, and then you can like do this new kind of like pillar look. A lot of people use it like that, so it's not a very, I mean, it's a fairly well-known technique to be used, but look how shiny this is. This is a modded one as well. Yeah, curved wall section. Unfortunately, this is mod. We can definitely use stuff like this in the base game. I mean, honestly. Hopefully 1.2. Alright, so we've got a bunch more storage in this section here. So we've got the train station and then the drone, or trains below and drones above, and it's probably bringing in, well, I would assume cement. So you can see with this section here, what I like about this is he's actually added a bit more color to this area, which fits really, really nice. So kind of like this, like what just turquoise, bluish kind of color, and added a bunch of power storages, which look like they fit exactly in here. And then you've got this dedicated walkway going around, which is really cool. And you've got this little corner couch and table. That's kind of cool. I think these little signs again, let's have a look. Yeah, is this all just signs? Very well done. I think he said he was inspired by somebody else who did something similar to this. So yeah, good job. Alright, so you can see these are a bunch of buildings that are currently empty. Obviously, like we said, this is all work in progress at the moment. There are some production items in here as he's kind of like steadily fleshing out the world with his new designs. This one's also doing a bunch of various items. I do want to show this section here where you've got like this emissive lights again, but again you can use signs, and you just basically have like this tier system like stepping up, and just have a signs. If you can have signs at the back and you just kind of like cut it off of walls and other ones. You can definitely do this in vanilla. It's a very cool design. I like it. Alright, so we've got another distinctive looking building here. The thing that stands out for this one is this kind of like rounded edges. Now unfortunately that is modded as well, so that's a pity. This train station above here looks actually really, really nice. This entire thing is just one massive blueprint, so I've seen he's used this quite a bit in his world, so the consistency is also quite nice. But what I do like about this one is a nice use of color, and it's got a little bit of a splash of blue in there just to mix it up a little bit. I've done similar ones, but this one just kind of like takes it up a notch. Alright, let's see if we can get in here. Here we go. Right, so it seems like elevator access from the road up above and then coming down here. So this is another work in progress one. So there's obviously a bunch of empty ones in anticipation for what he's going to be building. One thing though, I do like this triangle door thing again. It looks really nice, and I do like the use of color. It's got the sign up there, it's got red reflection up there, and then the white on the actual shiny metal door. It just works. It's nice. I like the fact that it's just not a door. It just makes it more interesting, and it's also consistent with his design with the triangular use. Alright, let's get a closer look at the roads. As you guys can see, there's quite an extensive set of roadworks in here, and I showed you earlier what the pillar looks like, but let's have a look on the inside. He's got a conveyor system, or a room for conveyor belts down here. So there we go. So there's entire bus system, or where you can put a bus. So you can probably do carts here, I suppose, or maybe like a Mark 6 conveyor belt, turn this into like one of those fast little walker thingies at the airport. I can't recall the name now. But you could probably add belts in here. Like, I mean, there's a ton of room for a lot of belts. So this can definitely be turned into a bus, which I would assume is the purpose of having a open section like this. So yeah, it's a good idea. It's a nice little infrastructure project he's got going here. Looks pretty cool, very spacious as well. Right, so we're going to move over to the next building. This way on the other side, so let's cut to that one. Right, moving up to one of the factories that are actually a bit fleshed out. Pretty much, I think this one's pretty much done. I do like the way this looks, kind of like fencing off the miners. I think that's a nice touch. Unfortunately, again, these are all modded assets, but you can get something very similar using vanilla assets. Just using the fence and maybe some concrete flooring. This section looks really kind of cool, actually. Completely overdone for just a single belt coming in, but still looks really, really nice. And then moving on to this little production floor, as again you can see the shiny floor, so it looks really, really nice. It's got a very clean and very kind of like very open layout, and I do like that. The one thing also that's kind of cool as you see me coming now, there's kind of like open holes on the side, which acts as like a, let's call it the hoverpack access area. I mean, in this world, the hoverpacks is available to Pioneer, so it would make sense to incorporate that into your builds to have essentially like a hoverpack access areas. Yep. Alright, so we're going to move over to that last section over there, and there's only one more building. Actually, sorry, two more buildings I want to show you guys. Right, so we got another rather interesting and unique looking building. I do really like the fact that this building is actually built from pillars, which is definitely something I'll be incorporating in future builds as well. It's just having more ways to build walls is always welcome, and I think the beams themselves are actually quite versatile when it comes to what you can add to, like painting wise, and how you can use them, which is obviously there's no limit. So adding beams to your repertoires of how you can build walls is obviously going to be very welcome. Alright, this thing doesn't like me at all. There we go. Alright, so this factory looks really, really nice. I do like this fact that these smelters, they're actually boxed in completely. So what I usually do is, if there's a smelter with some sort of exhaust, that either you need a ventilation system or you need to have it outside. That's just kind of like my rules that I play with. But this looks very cool, where you enclose the entire smelter, and then you can kind of like have this wall be like a chimney section. I mean, at least it's believable for something that is smoky and has like exhaust to be inside. And then you've got these kind of like high glossy floors in here with a dedicated walkways. Looks really, really nice. It looks like you've got like this kind of like clean room effect, which is cool. And then these chandeliers are just nice. Again, pillars or beams for the roof. Very, very nice. It gives you lots of versatility. I mean, you can make those into blueprints and you can slap down the roof very easily. And the roof then also becomes a feature of the build where it complements the rest of the build. So I really like that approach. I'm definitely going to be playing more with beams for both roof and walls. This is a very nice build. I like this. It's pretty cool. This door does not like me at all. Anyways, moving on. Right, so we're going to go to the last section, which is the way at the end. It's a bunch of constructors built in a really unique and interesting way. So let's jump straight to it. Now, these structures are actually quite unique. I really like the look of these ones. This kind of like wraparound concrete wall section here is really cool. These little constructor towers really have got a unique look, and obviously there's a fair amount of modded assets being used here. But I think it looks really cool, and it's mostly because of this kind of like a wraparound wall going all the way around, just giving it a very unique look to it. And you can do this to some extent with vanilla assets, but it's not going to look as good as these, unfortunately. But it's a cool idea. I think it definitely warrants some experimentation. These are also really, really nice, but again, these are obviously modded as well, and they've got kind of like this long section that you can stretch out as much as you need, and you can see a fair amount of use in it. So, but these kind of like rounded base sections that the constructor tiles are sitting on is just, I think, what really sells this look. But these are all modded assets, very nice ones, I have to say. But unfortunately we don't have access to that. But that's it for this world review. Thank you guys for sticking around. Obviously a big shout out to MoroseTurnip for sharing his world with us and allowing me to showcase this to you guys. He's got some really cool designs, he's got some really unique builds in here, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how this world turns out in the end. I think it's going to be something quite special. And then, as usual, I'd like to thank my patrons. You guys have continuously supported me throughout the last couple of months, and I truly appreciate your support. If you would like to become a Patreon supporter, just check the link in the description, and just follow it there. You can have a look at my Patreon where I offer up a bunch of stuff. That's it for today, and I'll see you in the next one.
Hold on, let me take my time.